Please welcome Amber Heard. I think we're going to sit in the middle, but I'm sorry about the lack of fire. Well,
Everything's better with fire.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start with your personal story as a sort of way into this. So it's often said that you came out in 2010, but it's not quite as simple as that, is it? It's not quite right. So tell us what really happened.
Well, I always say in response to when I hear someone comment about me coming out, I think it's funny because I was never in part because I'm stubborn, I guess, and also in part because I just didn't feel it was wrong. And even though I looked around and realized that no one else was in my position similar to me was doing it, and even though everyone around me advised me, strongly advised me against it, it was just wrong. And I would have rather go down for being who I am than to have risen for being something I'm not. And I was in a relationship and I just never hit it. And it was just not important or interesting enough for a long time. And then my career started to change, my life started to change, and all of a sudden, paparazzi would jump out of the bushes, and when it started happening, I would look around thinking, oh, I wonder who's here.
So there was this particular interview you gave in 2010.
Yeah.
So that was, I don't know, that was stating things sort of formally in a way you hadn't before, at least.
Sure, I like I said, I was always out. I was an activist. I went to protests. I refused to not bring my partner at the time, but no one ever asked me about it. And an outlet specifically asked me who I was there with that night and what that person was to me. And I just answered honestly the way I always answered had there not been a tape recorder on me. And I was just, walking into an event, and I answered off the cuff. And I could tell by the look on this person's face that it definitely, well, it didn't feel like a big deal to me. Definitely it was a big deal. And the next day, my poor publicist. But then I realized the gravity of what I had done, and started to understand why so many people, studio execs, directors, advisors, agents, producers, why everyone was so adamant about this not being the label that comes before my name. And then I saw, as my name became a commodity for this cause or not cause, and then I saw it was attached. I was attached to a label, and I was so allergic to that in principle. I never have seen myself as defined by the person I'm with. The same way as you probably not defined by the hair color of your partner. It just was not as somebody who's fluid and human. I never saw myself as defined as one particular thing or not, and so I watched as that I quickly became not actress Amber Heard, but out lesbian Amber Heard.
Now, this was extremely unusual for a young leading actress to be in that position. You were a pioneer. There hadn't been a role model for that kind of thing. So you didn't realize that you were going to be sort of opening a door that other people could go through. But in effect, that's what's happened, hasn't it?
Well, I guess part of me, that's why I did it. I was, it would have been easy for me to do what everyone around me did. I have and had a lot of lesbian and gay friends that were working actors, very well-known working actors. And the status quo is just that you answer, my private life is my private life. And it becomes, it's used as this kind of, not so much euphemism, but it's a nice way to dodge it. And
a deflector shield.
Yeah, and I also didn't see any worth in that, since while that is true, while my private life is valuable to me, I knew that being in Hollywood, I had a particular responsibility. The burden was on me in a different way than, say, if I had a different kind of job that was less, that had less public attention around it. And I saw myself as being in this unique position with this unique gift. And as with any unique gift, comes with unique responsibility. And so I just, bit the bullet and called my parents and said, sorry, but you're gonna bye-bye to your private life for a while too. And this is going to be a ride.
And what was the impact immediately on your career, both in the short term and subsequently?
Well, I stand here today. It's hard to be objective about these sorts of things, but I stand here today in a completely different world than I was in 2009 when I was, thinking about this and wondering what the possibilities could be. In 2010, when I was taking meetings with people saying, I've got. I was leading, at the time my career was taking off in a different way, and I was not just acting, but I was being cast and leading movies as the romantic lead. And everybody around me said, you as an actress, as a romantic lead, leading lady, you need to be able to sell. There's a certain amount of wish fulfillment you need to be able to fulfill. You need to be able to sell. And, how will anyone get behind? How is anyone going to invest in you romantically if they think you're, unavailable to half the? And I rolled my eyes at that, and I said, "Watch me do it," and I did. And that's, I guess, what I'm trying to say is it did impact my career. It was difficult. It was not easy. I was the only one working in this way. So it was definitely difficult because no one had done it. But I stand here now in 2017 amongst many of my working romantic leading lady peers who are out and leading completely fluid out lives, which is even more difficult than, say, I think even than being a part of one particular label or not. And I'm one of many now. And I'm working, and I'm here today to talk to you, amazing people. And I did that, even though everyone told me it would end my career, right, without a doubt.
So I suppose we heard about this in the previous panel as well. There is this presumption that the creative industries and the movie industry as part of that are a bastion of liberal values, and you're saying actually this isn't true. There's this kind of still extremely widespread right, prejudices and stereotypes that you're expected to conform to. So how has that side of things changed? Has there been aside from the fact that you're not the only one anymore, how has actually the thinking inside the industry changed, and what still needs to happen?
Well, it's ironic, when I first moved out to LA, my parents, they're Southern folk, they're from Texas. They were worried about, how my brain was going to be corrupted by liberal Hollywood, And I laugh because it's ironic. Like you said, Hollywood has this reputation for being this beacon of liberalism and progressive ideology, and maybe on a micro level, on an individual level, yes, it is. Hollywood itself is filled with individuals who are very liberal and progressive and left-leaning and liberal. But in a macro level, Hollywood is the opposite. We like to think of it as providing a reflection of real life. Art imitates life, and we like to think that Hollywood, that we're making movies that reflect our reality. And the truth is, Hollywood needs to change very quickly if it's going to still be relevant at all, because it has a lot of catching up to do just to mainstream society. Back 2007, 2008, when I was just beginning, really, vast majority of Americans did not support gay marriage. If you had an opinion on the matter, over 60% said no way, that did not support it. And now, just a short time later, it's the opposite actually is true. Over 60% overwhelmingly do, and so we see society changing at rapid pace. But Hollywood, in stark contrast, has changed hardly at all. I'll put it this way: in 2015, I was promoting this film I did. That was about a transgender woman. It's called The Danish Girl. And, when I was, 2015, it was just a minute ago. And in 2015, while I'm promoting that movie, out of the top 100 grossing films, only 32 of those films even featured one person with a name, one character that was in the LGBT or could be considered in the LGBT community. Only one of those films included the T in that, trans. And that is a significant jump from the year prior in 2014, where I think it was all of 19.
I like this. She's bringing data. That's a very economist answer, so thank you. So,
know your audience.
So they're catching up, but they still have a long way to go. So actually,
we have a long way to go.
We had one of your fans asked on Twitter, someone called Norman Golden says, do you think LGBT characters are being represented well in movies, and how's that changed? So the answer is better, but still not well enough?
I would say if we're meant to not just reflect the world around us, the whole point of, at least as far as I'm concerned, the whole point of telling stories and reaching broad audiences in this way is not just to maintain the status quo, it's to push the envelope, it's to challenge the status quo. I mean, that's what we're doing. That's why we're not just talking to the table at dinner. We're speaking to the whole world. It's to push the envelope, it's to challenge the rules. And we're an industry with unique potential to do so. And for us to just maintain the status quo is bad enough. But we need to be actively pushing. And so to answer your question, I think we have a long way to go just merely to catch up with the general attitudes.